Whenever I talk to the CEO or senior management of a company that's working in software, for example, I work with the CIO of O2 in Germany, a big telecom company. And one of the first things he said to me is, Jeff, here's my problem. I just finished a $100 million euro project. It cost me 270 million euro, and it was 2 years late. Can Scrum fix that? And I said, well, you must have had to pay for changes. That's why you had the cost overrun, right? The requirements changed, and you had to pay time and materials. And the vendor came in initially and lowballed the price, knowing that all their money was going to be made in costs and materials when you made changes.
The change orders.
And so their incentive was to make that project go on as long as possible and have you pay as much as possible. And he said, that's right. And I said, I was at the Pentagon 2 weeks ago, Ken, we haven't talked about this. But the Department of Defense of the United States has been instructed by Congress to implement iterative and incremental development. So one of the first things that happened is the head of IT for the DoD, who has been in my Scrum course, said, Jeff, you need to come in and talk to the task force right away. So I come in and I tell them the same thing. You know, those Beltway bandits in Washington, they come in with a lowball bill in the contract, you sign it, time and materials, they're going to charge you until they can bleed you dry. And every person in the room said, yes, that's what they do. And I said, well, you need to start putting a short option clause in your contract that says all change is free if the new request, which Scrum can absorb immediately, is offset by throwing away some low-value feature of equal work. And there's always low-value, useless features that can be thrown away. We know on the average, all over the world, 65% of features never are really used. And so there's huge amounts of waste in software projects. So for the CIO of O2, if he had that in his contract, he would have come in at 100 million euro instead of 270 million euro. It's a simple, low-risk way of changing the incentive structure in the industry, which is designed for projects to be late and for budgets to be high.
We had a number of companies that have worked with, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Corporation, Essex Corporation, Gestalt Corporation, and DoD contracting. And bottom up, the colonels and captains in the Department of Defense have been using Scrum for a number of years. And they just, come up to you and say, wink, wink, knock, we're going to use Scrum. What happened is the programs that would make defense projects, like new AWACS projects, new over-the-hill radar projects, typically those are vast overruns and fail. And so the idea, if you're a colonel or captain, is if you're assigned one of those programs and you can politically survive its failure, we might promote you to be an admiral or a general. What started happening is these guys they came out of APL Johns Hopkins, where they first were prototyping using Scrum. And what started happening is they started saving lives. I mean, the United States is in lots of wars, and a number of things they bring in were saving lives. And it would come right back to the colonel or captain with the credit, and the guy would be promoted based on the success in helping our forces. And so now it's not that all the colonels and captains in the world don't want to be generals and admirals, but they're fighting hand over fist to use Scrum with their projects.
There's a very interesting item that came out in the press about the Iraqi war that was essentially turned around by cross-functional teams that put together all the intelligence services and daily meetings, co-location. And they were so fast at finding, identifying, and knocking out the bad guys that it put the whole terrorist infrastructure into disarray. And it dropped the violence by over 80% in less than a year, and allowed the U.S. to then extract itself pretty much from Iraq.
Wait just a sec.
What's that?
because the next part you're going to love.
Next part is interesting. See, this is what happens when the leadership goes away, when General Petraeus goes away. All the intelligence services have their own agenda. They said, this information sharing is against our self-interest. We have our own agendas. We're going to stop these cross-functional teams. So the bureaucracy has taken down all the cross-functional teams in Iraq. Whether they have them in Afghanistan now or not, I don't know. But if they don't have them, we're going to have a disaster in Afghanistan. So Scrum is much bigger than just getting some software done.
Another company that we've worked with, and is one of our huge success stories, I'm not going to disclose its name because of what I'm going to tell you, but it is our leading example of agility and empowerment of the organization. For instance, in the Chinese earthquake, its local office went in and helped all the people in that area of China and spent $50 million of the corporate money helping them rebuild without permission, from the United States. And when they found out about it, no one was punished. This is a good thing. And now if you want to buy equipment in that part of China, it's going to be theirs. And a consultant I know that was working with the CEO of that company and working next told me that the top vice presidents there can't wait for the CEO to leave. They are sick of this collaboration and cooperation stuff. They want to reaffirm their fiefdoms, their power. They're sick of this stuff. So the top guy leaves, and this is why Jeff and I are talking with you about culture change. I mean, this is not just a top guy forcing. This is a different way of thinking. And that's why I don't think we're going to be retiring for 6 months or 7 years.
And it's all about whether you're for the best for people or where you have a self-serving interest, where you're feeding at the trough. That's what's going on in the world. There are people that want the best for people, and there are people who want to take everything for themselves. And what happens is Scrum makes that visible. And so then you have a battle.
Yeah, we've implemented Scrum like 7 times at Fidelity Investments. Whenever they have a problem, severe problem, they bring in Scrum and use it to solve it. But everyone in Fidelity is paid more than almost anyone else in the Northeast of the United States. So they do not want to leave Fidelity. So politics is rife, and Scrum is transparent anti-politics. So as an organizational idea, it never happened.
Yeah.
But it's a great problem solver for you.
I met a VP from Fidelity on an airplane recently, and he said, I'm implementing Scrum. And I said, well, I heard you've already implemented it at 7 other locations. And he says to me, it doesn't matter how many times we've implemented and failed. He says, the problem is always the same, and Scrum is always the answer.